Alright, are you ready to do some cleaning? Yes? Good, because now we're about to do a deep cleaning of the text, right? So far the texts have punctuations, different characters other than letters, they have capital letters, lowercase, the verbs are conjugated differently. Well, we're going to simplify all this, and that's indeed an essential step when doing natural language processing. We need to clean the text as much as we can in order to ease the learning process of the future machine learning model, which we will train to understand the reviews, understand English basically, and predict if the reviews are positive or negative. Alright, so let's do this. Let's first import the libraries, meaning the tools which will allow us to clean these texts. So the first one, and that's the main one, the most essential one, it is the re library, RE. Right, so let me just import it first. It's simply called RE, and that's the library we'll use to, yes, this one, the first one, that's the library we'll use to simplify basically the reviews. But this is not the library that will allow us to do the stemming, which I will remind and re-explain later on. Okay, so RE. Then we will import, of course, the NLTK library, a very classic library in natural language processing, which will allow us to download the ensemble of stop words. So what are the stop words? These are, the words we don't want to include in our reviews, after cleaning the text, which, are words that are not relevant to help the predictions of whether a review is positive or negative. And these words include, the simple ones like the, all the articles like the, and, all these words which don't give any hint of whether a review is positive or negative. So we will remove all these words, all the words that are not helpful to predict if a review is positive or negative. And speaking of these stop words, well, now that we imported NLTK, we can call NLTK, and from which we're going to download, well, all the stop words. And to specify this, we need to enter here in quotes inside this download function from the NLTK library, stop words. And this will get all the stop words, and you'll see later on how we use this to indeed not include these non-relevant words in our reviews. Okay, so good. Now we're not done with NLTK yet, because from NLTK and then from the corpus module of the NLTK library, we will import all these stop words that we just downloaded before. There we go. So basically this line of code downloads them, and this line of code imports them into our notebook. Okay, so all these stop words. And finally, still from NLTK and from the stem module from the NLTK library, and then once again from the Porter submodule of the stem module of the NLTK library, well, we're gonna import a class which is the Porter stemmer class. Perfect. And this is the class we'll use, of course, to apply stemming on our reviews. So now let me remind what this is about. Stemming consists of taking only the root of a word that indicates enough about what this word means. So for example, let's say there is a review that says, "Oh, I loved this restaurant." Okay? And let's say we want to apply stemming to the word loved. Well, what it will do is that it will transform loved into love, just to simplify the review. Because whether we say, "Oh, I loved this restaurant," or "Oh, I love this restaurant," well, that means the same. That means that the review is positive. So we can totally remove all the conjugation of the verbs, just keeping the present tense, so that we can indeed simplify the reviews. Because remember, at the end, after cleaning the text, when creating actually the bag of words model, we will create a sparse matrix where in each column we will have all the different words of all our different reviews. And therefore, in order to optimize or minimize the dimension of this sparse matrix, where the dimension is exactly the number of columns, well, we need to simplify as much as we can the words. And if we don't apply stemming, well, in the sparse matrix we will have one column for love and one column for loved. And since that means the same thing, that would be redundant, and that would make the sparse matrix even more complex, with a higher dimension. So that would be wrong. So that's exactly what stemming is about. It consists of reducing the final dimension of the sparse matrix so that we can indeed have not too much trouble to learn the text from our machine learning model. All right, so that's what this Porter stemmer class will do. And now there you go, my friend. We can start cleaning the text. We have all the tools we need. So the first thing we'll do is create a new list, which we'll call corpus, all right? And we will initialize this list as an empty list. And what will this list be exactly? What will it contain? Well, it will simply contain all our different reviews, all the different reviews from our data set, but all cleaned and all into this list corpus. So what we'll do actually is, we will make a for loop to iterate through all the different reviews of our data set. And for each of these reviews, we will apply a cleaning process, by putting all the letters in lowercase and removing the punctuations and removing the stop words, all these things. And we will do that one review after another. And each time we clean a review, well, we will add it to this corpus. So this corpus will only get in the end all the cleaned reviews, okay? And we do this, of course, because then the future functions we'll use in the next steps expect our reviews in the list and all cleaned, okay? So corpus, and now that we initialize this list, well, we're going to populate it with the clean reviews through a for loop. A for loop which will iterate, with this classic looping variable I in the range from 0 to, well, guess what? Guess what is the upper bound? We will simply iterate through all the reviews, and since we have 1000 reviews in our data set, well, I will simply go from 0 to 1000, right? As simple as that. It will iterate through the indexes of the reviews, which go effectively from 0 to 999, okay? So, for loop ready, and now we can go inside the for loop, and there we go. Now we're going to apply different steps to clean each and every single review of our data set. So, first of all, we will create a new variable which we will call review. And that variable will exactly be that cleaned review. But, we will clean it step by step, so we will update review each time we proceed to a new kind of cleaning. And the first kind of cleaning we'll do will be to remove all punctuations. In other words, it will be to keep only the letters in our reviews, all right? And to do this, we're going to call our RE library, from which we're going to call the sub function, which is a function that can replace anything in a text, in a string actually, by anything else you want. And what we're going to replace actually is any element that is not a letter, from A to Z, by a space. So that every punctuation like quotes, double quotes, commas, or colons, or anything you want will be replaced by a space. And it has to be replaced by a space because otherwise we can have two words that stick together. So we need to make sure we replace the punctuations by spaces so that we can indeed still separate the words, all right? And the way to do this, thanks to this sub function, is to enter here in the parameters first what we want to replace, and the trick to say that we want to replace anything that is not a letter is to do it this way. You start with a pair of square brackets here, just like that, so that what's inside this pair of square brackets will be what will be replaced, by the spaces. And the trick to say that what we want to replace are anything but letters is to include a hat here, and I will explain what this means, and then add a, so you have to do it like that actually, double hat, a, okay? A dash Z, so all the lowercase letters from A to Z, but also then all the capital letters from A to Z. All right? And what this hat means is exactly not. This symbol in mathematics or computer science means not, meaning not all the letters from A to Z in lowercase, nor the capital letters from A to Z, which is exactly what we want. We want to replace anything that is not the letters from A to Z in lowercase or capitals by spaces. And the way to specify that we want to replace all these by spaces is, well, exactly what we have to enter here as a second parameter, and which we will enter in, quotes, but inside a space, right? What's inside these quotes is exactly what we want to replace those non-letters here by, all right? So we're going to replace everything that is not letters, meaning all the punctuations, by this space, okay? And then, finally, we have to enter one final argument, which is, of course, where we want to do all these replacements. Inside what? Inside which review, right? Inside which text? And so very simply, the third parameter we have to enter here is the review in which we want to do all these replacements. And to access the review, well, that's very easy. We need to take our data set. There we go. Then we need to take the right column of the data set which contains the reviews, and that's, of course, the first column which we can either access with the iloc function and then specifying the index 0, or I'll show you another trick by adding here a pair of square brackets and then just entering in quotes, well, the name of the column, which is review, right? If we go back to our data set, you will see that the name of the first column is review, okay? So as you want, iloc works very well too. And now, do we need to add something here? Well, of course, because this only gets the first column containing all the reviews, but now we're dealing with a specific review, the one of index I, and therefore to catch that specific review which we want to clean right now inside this for loop, well, is simply to add in a new pair of square brackets, I. Alright, so this will get the review of index I and this first column review of the dataset, and that's exactly what we want. Alright, first cleaning done. Now we will proceed to two other types of cleaning, then we will take a little break, and then we will proceed to stemming, which will consist of, simplifying the words in order to get only the root, and therefore simplifying eventually the sparse matrix. Alright, so that new step will be to transform all the capital letters into lowercase. And that's very easy. To do this, we just need to take our review variable, from which we can now call a specific function because, we created this variable as an output of this subfunction by the RE library. And therefore, like objects, it now has some attributes and functions or, methods that you can call. And that function we want now to simplify all the letters into lowercase is the lower function. And that's it. You just have to enter it like that, review.lower. But this will return the review with only lowercase letters, and since we want to update our review variable, well, we simply need to add here review equals, right? Equals the result of applying the lower function to our previous version of the review. Okay, so very easy. And then one final cleaning before we proceed to stemming in the next tutorial. Well, actually, what we have to do now is something to prepare for the stemming, and that something is to split the different elements of the reviews in different words, actually, because the different elements are now words. So we're going to split the review into its different words so that then we can apply stemming to each of these words, by simplifying them by their root, okay? So the way to do this is very simple. Once again, I'm going to copy this and paste that here. And instead of calling the lower function, I'm simply going to call the split function. As simple as that, this will split your review into its different words. And now my friends, we're ready for the stemming.